Hello and welcome back to Higher Self Wellness with Alec Hurley. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're doing well today on this beautiful day, whatever day you find yourself listening to this. I want to invite you to share this podcast, to leave a review on iTunes or wherever you are listening. I just thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It helps us grow. Been doing this for just over a year now, which is pretty cool to see. And it's just growing organically and being well received. So if you're enjoying it, I'd love to hear about it. You can let me know by leaving a review once again, or you can even email me directly, alec@higherself.yoga. You can check out the website. You can start your day right video series to integrate your body and your mind first thing in your morning so you can move through your day with purpose. You can also learn more about the Embodied Awakening program I'm going to be releasing at the end of the month in April. That is a program designed around yoga, meditation, self-care, nutrition, adopting the wisdom practices from Ayurveda just so we feel a little better in our body, more calm and clear in our mind, and more connected to our environment. You can find out more about that on the website, higherself.yoga. And today you are tuning into part 2 of a conversation I had with Judith Pennington. If you missed last week's episode, that was part 1. This is part 2. We had a really in-depth, long conversation, so I decided that it might be better just to break it up and allow time in between to really digest what's being shared. She has a lot to share, and she is a wealth of wisdom. She is the author of The Voice of the Soul, as well as Your Psychic Soul. She has many meditation CDs and programs about brainwaves of consciousness, which you can find on her website at judithpennington.com. That is Pennington with double N. And you can find a link to find her stuff over in the notes. Other than that, I'm just grateful that you're here. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you are enjoying this seasonal transition. So, hit me up if you have any questions, alec@higherself.yoga, or over there on social media. You can find me on Instagram, Alec Hurley, WAHURLEY, or over there on Facebook. And I look forward to hearing from you. It's always nice to do so. So, without further ado, here's part 2, Judith Pennington. I like to invite people to, because we are nature. We are made up of the same elements as everything else outside. And we can see our breath, we can see our thoughts as nothing more than just nature flowing through us. Like our thoughts and our mind, it's a part of nature, and it's what we use as a tool to navigate through our life with. And I really love practices that invite people into that space, to see that flow as nothing more than just like clouds, as weather, as just the elements and everything like dancing with each other, if you will. And for me, that's been profound, because using that as a practice has really brought me home back into my body, and to be able to hear my inner guide that is always there, like very quietly in the background, but as soon as everything else is toned down,
chatter.
As soon as the chatter goes down, it's like, it's such a clear and precise and profound voice that it just has a much different quality than anything else. And we can learn how to trust and like lean back and rest and trust that, okay, yes, I can hear you and thank you. And so I love that.
Yeah, and the wonderful thing about it, I mean, I love what you said about we are nature. Of course we are, but we forget it because everything looks like separation, this separate body, that separate tree. But actually, I see us as holograms of that spiritual essence that is operating at different frequencies, at different vibrations. And we, as the result, are living out, there is an interference pattern that consists of our issues, but we are basically living out what that spirit wants us to do. And so one of the things that I love to think about is that as this hologram, the brain is a hologram of the physical body. The physical body is a hologram of the spiritual being. And to get in touch with the spiritual being, all you have to do, and this is the way it works with brainwaves, in brainwaves you're dropping into lower and slower frequencies back toward the back of the head. And from the front, the forehead, toward the back of the head. And one way to get there is to imagine yourself going down and in your body. And your brain starts to lower its frequencies as you drop deeper and deeper down into your body. And so there's this line in the brainwave meditations that just says, imagine yourself go down and in, inside, deeper and deeper. And what happens is the body relaxes, and when the body relaxes and lets go of its tension, so does beta, the conscious mind, lets go of its arousal, because the mind and the body being the same are always doing the same things. So it's really neat that you can, and you don't even have to walk into nature in real life. You can just do it in a meditation. You can just meditate on a beautiful place that you've been and bring it to mind, and then use all of your senses, including kinesthesia, the idea of walking through space, your body movement through space, and walk through a beautiful place that you've been, and bring that to life with your senses, and then go and find a place to sit down, imaginary or real. And the brain, because the brain doesn't know the difference between the two, it thinks you're actually in the place. And once you sit down, you can imagine yourself going down and in, deeper and deeper into a very deep meditation. You lower your frequencies, you relax your body, and just as you said, and some people envision it, some of our meditations say, falling backwards into warmth, backwards into softness. So whether you go back or whether you go down and in, either way, it's a ticket to connect with your subconscious awareness and your guiding voice.
Yeah.
I think this is why we have religions, right? Because what do they do? You sit down on a pew in some church, and as soon as you sit down, okay, well, this hour is yours. You don't have to cook, clean, have any work on your mind. You're focusing your awareness on a priest or a ritual, and what do you have in meditation, right? You light a candle, you have a special chair, you sit up a certain way, maybe you read an inspirational passage. All of these things are gradations of the movement toward mental and physical relaxation, which is what puts you in touch with your inner peace. I think that's the whole reason there. I don't think it's about an external God. I think it's just that that's where people find that quantum field of light that they came to call God, is just by doing those simple, easy things.
Yeah, absolutely. And ritual and practice, that's a huge part of it, because we, in a lot of ways, entrain ourselves to know that this is happening. And it's the ritual component of, like, I sit down, I say my prayer, I do whatever that looks like. And over time, it's like we just know, and we can drop in faster and drop in a little bit easier. And it just helps, like, facilitate that connection and facilitate that surrender and that submission of the mind, and really getting into the flow of consciousness as it's happening in that moment.
Yes, absolutely. I'll tell you two little quickie things. Is that Anna Wise has a meditation that I would listen to in the hot tub called accessing the creativity of the high performance mind. And I think I was writing something or other, and I would sit in the hot tub, listen to that meditation. It asks you to get a landmark. And so the landmark is a word, image, concept, or body sensation that represents the feeling of your state of awareness, right? And so mine would always be, floating in the hot tub, super expanded, relaxed, peaceful, easy flow. And before long, I was working up at my desk with the phone going and the email and a whole bunch of things, and went, I'm not in the state of consciousness I want to be in. And how can I get there? Oh, right. I have a landmark for that state. And I would just imagine myself back in the hot tub. It worked like a charm. I mean, absolute charm to get me back to a meditation state. And I was, even today, this morning, knowing we were going to talk, running a bunch of errands that I wanted to get done beforehand. And I found myself getting impatient with other drivers. I'm not an A+ anymore. I'm a B+ now in terms of wound up consciousness. But I'm still a B+, not a B- or a C, like those other lucky people. But as I was driving around and noticing that I was doing that, I went, you don't have to be like this, right? Remember the landmark for the awakened mind pattern, which for us is about peak performance, creative flow. And for me, it's the sensation when I was hooked up to the EEG, to the mind mirror, and was producing a ton of awakened mind patterns, resolving a problem. And the landmark that I associated with that pattern was light flowing at the crown of my head. So I did that, and 2 seconds later I went, okay, now am I going to forget this? Am I going to get it wound up again? It didn't last the entire time. So you're saying is that neuroplasticity is a part of what we're saying here, is that you're literally rewiring your brain and consciousness to more peaceful and expanded states of awareness through meditation. But for everyone, of course, there's this period where you come out of meditation, you're full of light and happy for a half an hour or an hour or 2 or 3 hours, and then some boogaboo comes along, and whether it's an event or a person, and you're out of it. You're back where you were before the meditation. You're all wound up again. After you meditate for many years, then you stay through neuroplasticity in that meditative state of consciousness. You externalize it, which is what our work with the mind mirror is all about, teaching people how to externalize and maintain those alpha waves, because they're usually ordinary consciousness. People don't have alpha. But when people learn to externalize their sensory awareness, to keep that connection between the external world and the internal world, then that's a truly awakened person. And like you were saying, the way to do that is just to remember how you felt. But it's even easier if you create a landmark. If somebody listening to this program says, I'm going to go and try this on my own rather than take a class because it seems doable, and they go and sit in a comfortable chair, and suddenly the chatter stops. They feel a sensation maybe of light or energy or something flowing within them. And they feel like they've connected with themselves in a way that they hadn't been connected before. If they'll just stop and think, what does this feel like? And find some words for that, then the next time they go to meditate and bring that to mind, then there's less of the, time spent wondering why the mind ran away and you've wasted 10 minutes, because again, the brain doesn't know the difference between a real and imagined event. So when you bring that original state of consciousness back to mind, the brain goes, oh, right, I remember this, kaboom, you're back in meditation. And then eventually, when you're in everyday life, finding yourself slide and slip out of that meditative state, you go, oh, wait, I don't have to be mad at the traffic. What's my landmark for being awake? And then the day comes when you rarely slip or slide out of the state, and you're just happy all the time, like a lunatic. Happy, spontaneous, and that's the definition of the awakened mind. Enthusiastic, living a life of service to self and others, self-actualized, because, it's not really being selfish, it's really following the dictates of your own higher in spirit, which wants you to be the most that you can be. And if you spend your meditations meditating on an issue and getting solutions, well, that's the awakened mind pattern. That's the thing you're trying to externalize your meditation to everyday life. You're internalizing your external life and resolving problems so that when you come out of meditation, your internal life is then externalized. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Very smart.
I love it. Yeah, and a lot of it's like, especially the driving in traffic portion of it. It's so easy to take it personally. And
my timetable.
That's right. I'm going here. You're in my way. Why did you cut me off?
Right.
And if we take it from that and we move it to the impersonal, and it's so like, oh, maybe they're just in a hurry to get somewhere. Maybe they just had an emergency phone call, and like, oh, I just send them love, and I hope they get to where they need to go fast and safe. And it changes not only how we feel about the situation, but also our inner state, and we can get out of the way and create less distortion between the underlying peace and happiness that's always there. Because I really believe that is our natural state. Like, that is nature. Nature is nurturing, nature is supportive, nature is collaborative, and nature is always there and will always have our back. But our mind is very tricky, and our mind is when left unchecked.
It's how fast is it going? That's the key, isn't it? I mean, if you find yourself eating your food like a maniac and your mind going really, really fast, well, you're in beta. You're in your thinking conscious mind. But if you're eating consciously and being aware of the tastes, then you've got some alpha going there, and that means you're in touch with your deeper self. I mean, it's so much of our growth has to do with awareness of what is our state of consciousness from a moment. I'll tell you a funny still story. Many years ago, I went to the Unity Church in Emmaus, and I would always hate to walk in late. Unity people are famous. They're free spirits. They have a metaphysical view of religion and life. It's positive spirituality, but people were always walking in late, so it wasn't like it was a big deal, but it really bothered me to be late, partly because my then very young grandson was coming with me, and he'd go to the little children's church, so I was driving to Emmaus in my car, and I'm going to be late. And he was very intuitive. He says, Granny, it feels like there's a policeman ahead. And there was a policeman ahead, and I was just getting more and more wound up. And all of a sudden on Wisdom Satellite Radio, they had this little program, and the guy's talking about something that I think will be of tremendous help to everyone who hears this, about the difference between the doer, the reactor, the thinker, and the reactor, I think it was. I'll remember better as I tell you. And so the thing was that the thinker is the one that's caught up in beta and always yammering from A to Z with solutions, ideas, thoughts about how to get from one place to the other. The reactor is the emotional part of the self that is tapping a foot or having a minor heart attack or the heart, what the heart is doing, right? But then the other part is the observer. And the observer is just watching the two of them. And the minute he said this, I went, oh, the observer. And I looked around and saw all these beautiful mountains and over, in the distance, and this blue sky. And I instantaneously went from the thinker and the reactor to the observer. And I went, idiot, you're already in church. And it doesn't, time is nothing. Enjoy the ride. And that was the end of that. I never worried about it again. And anybody can make that shift, because once you go, wait, which one am I in? I'm in my crazy thoughts, or I'm in my crazy emotions. And you go, wait, there's another part of me. Where's the observer? And then you instantaneously shift into the observer. Everybody can do it. And there you are, in your higher self and your deeper essential being simultaneously.
Wow. I love it. So I was actually referred to you based on sound and the effects of sound that it has on our states of consciousness.
Very cool.
Yeah. And so I'm a huge fan of music, and how, like, there's so much that sound can do, right? It can spark memories and put us into states of like joy and bliss and love and connection, and it can bring tears immediately to our eyes, and then music can also agitate us, and it can put us into other states of like, I'm not happy right now. I don't know, this doesn't make me feel good. And so have you done this, have you done any studies on cymatics is what actually?
Yeah, I mean, I know what cymatics is, and certainly I know that sound has a physical effect on everything. How could it not? Sound is the movement of light through space. And since everything's composed of light, any kind of movement is going to have a vibrational effect on you. What interests me much more about sound as a singer is that not just the emotional aspects of sound. My daughter and I were talking about this the other day, about how, because when we're in an emotional state and some music is playing, that emotional state is stored in the music for us, so we hear that song, classical movement or whatever it is again, and we're right back there. Of course that's true. What interests me more is the power of sound to balance the brain, to shift us out of destructive or unhelpful states of consciousness almost instantaneously. And through resonance and the use of sound through every part of the body and the brain. One time, for example, I was leading a program in Sea Bridge or something, Washington, and I ate that Saturday night something I was allergic to, and I woke up the next morning with a stuffy head and the most agonizing headache, and my whole nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic, were completely out of joint. And you know that's true when you walk across a room and stub your toe and then you fall against the doorknob and everything's wrong. But I had to stand up for most of the day in front of 80 people and play my guitar and sing chants, and I had PowerPoint shows, and it was a really rich and detailed program, and I went, what the hell am I going to do? I can't even get across my room here, much less anything else. And I remembered this Sufi chant taught in this book, The Music of Life, which actually Jonathan Goldman picked up, I guess, from the Sufis and teaches. And it's Edgar Casey teaches the power of sound too in a little book called Music as the Bridge. And I did these sounds, and I'm not kidding you, 3 minutes later, I was completely healed. And it consisted of imagining the lower energy center, the base, going, and then the area of the pelvis, ooh, the solar plexus, oh, the heart, ah, throat, I do it a little backwards because of Edgar Casey. Jonathan Goldman and the Sufis would do it. Hey, maybe start lower tone, whatever is your tonal range. But I mean, this is what the Great Pyramids were about. I mean, the Great Pyramid was about the King's Chamber, the resonating chamber, and our body has a resonating chamber. So yeah, certainly music from the outside can affect you, affect your consciousness. Casey said, don't do the equivalent of heavy metal, although it doesn't bother me. After all, range is what we're after here. You know, what can we tolerate? But certainly soothing, beautiful music will lower your brainwave frequencies and put you in better touch with yourself, because then you start to feel all airy. But the real power that everyone has is to sing with that. I started to sing recently with a drone sound, and I found that I'm going to end up for my next CD set, which is already recorded, called The Superconscious Mind. I haven't even given it to a publisher yet to listen to, but I'm going to sing to the drone sound because it just let my voice go completely free. And anybody can do that. Go into preferably a shower where you've got some acoustics and just massage inside the body with whatever smooth and beautiful, you know, not just staccato sounds, because it's the segue from one sound to another that does the vibration on the inside of the body, the organs and cells and atoms and everything. But there is no better harmonizer than inner sound and music. I mean, I really count on it all the time. I do it in the shower a lot. I sing that very same thing. Edgar Casey suggested the vowels, A, E, I, O, U. Mm-hmm. And then on my first set of CDs, there's a cut called Breathing Light. And I did this one that I probably won't do it very well right now, but it's so quick and easy. And it's just I can't do it right now because I'm thinking too much about it. But when you close the mouth, you can send the sound up to the palate and you can hear the harmonics. And so that's what you're doing, basically, working with the inner light and sound is creating harmonics that lift cells that are not operating at their peak frequency rate of vibration. You're actually increasing the vibration and healing yourself. Just to me, there's nothing more healing than music. Don't you? And it sounds like you agree. Are you a musician? Yeah. Tell about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up playing music. Both of my parents, they raised 3 kids playing music, and
wow.
You know, so I first learned the piano, and then it was I believe the guitar, and then the trumpet in middle school, and the drums. Like we turned our garage into a studio, and we just had all these instruments around so we could go in there and jam and play. And so I grew up, you know, my mother was constantly singing and humming and just toning around. And, you know, I find myself spontaneously doing it, especially when I'm driving. And I've been learning to let it out more and more of just making noises and noticing the effects, and how I think that's a really powerful tool to bring us back into sync with our spirit and into that flow of consciousness. And I see it almost as like it's a vibratory bath that we can give ourselves if we let the sounds come through when we feel like they need to. Because a lot of the times what prevents us, and what has prevented me in the past, is like thinking about, oh, if I make this noise, it's going to sound weird. But it's like, who cares? We're animals, and like this is part of being alive and just letting things flow through us. And but yeah, music and sound. Like I love Samkhya's philosophy. It's what Ayurveda is based off of, and it's essentially the journey of sound into form. It's the journey of consciousness into form, and it begins at the Big Bang and the separation. And that sound was, the dance of matter, and that is the journey of consciousness into where we are here now. And there's that tone, that underlying tone of aliveness that we can feel and access when we really get quiet. And in states of meditation, I can really feel that, how like even in the quietest times, there's never silence. There's always movement. And when we tone and when we make noises, it's just a reminder of that. And we can almost bring it from that space, from that background tone out through our voice. And I believe that that's what happens when we're really tapped in, and then we're speaking and we're really sharing messages and we're really sharing information and inspiration through our voice when we really get out of the way.
Absolutely. You are so fortunate. I'm so happy for you that you had a musical family like that. My daughter and her two children and I are always singing 4-part harmonies. There's every bottle of pills becomes a percussion instrument. We drive down the street, just making music everywhere. And we're all singing. We all have an inner jukebox that pops up songs that fit different situations. But we always change the words to them. The words change themselves. That's so much fun to live like that. But yeah, I know from so much experience, what you're saying is true, that it's the great communicator. It's the resonant force that draws others to us, and draws us to others is the voice, and the harmonies and the harmonics related to it. And don't you find that after meditation, your voice is so much clearer and so much more resonant and beautiful, and that other people notice that too?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting.
I think we're bringing each other into a meditative state right now.
Right? I love it. Yeah. It's it's a beautiful thing of really being able to like for me, meditation, like there's many practices that can bring us into a state of meditation, but ultimately for me, meditation is a state of awareness and a state of understanding and a state of like surrender to just the flow of nature, the flow of the cosmos, and being able to witness it as it's happening.
I agree 100%. The only difference for me would be that I would add the word focused awareness in there, because there are so many la-la people who go through life without any moorings, and just like a leaf in water, which has its place at times. When you're listening to someone else, yes, be like a leaf in water. But when it comes to finding out who you are and what you're doing here and how you can expand and express yourself and reach the dreams that every soul has of some greater and stronger connection with all that is. If you focus your awareness in meditation and focus your awareness in daily life, then you're not just a leaf on a wave or in the wind. You've got the peacefulness of it, but you at least know where the river's going and which way the wind is blowing. You can decide whether you want to take an exit or not. You know, I see this a lot with New Agers. I used to go to expos to market my book and CDs many years ago, and it's just, oh, la, 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 la. And they're the unhappiest people underneath that masquerade. They're so unhappy because, you know, they can talk to this guide and that guide, and it's all about, I have these great spiritual powers, but they have no earth powers. And if you're not grounded and connected to other people, because after all, that's what we're here for, is to, you know, find joy. And we can't do that by ourselves. It has to be with other people. And if a lot of people are just having these crazy arguments and fights and wars and feuds and stuff, and, oh, but I talked to the angel Gabriel this morning. No, you didn't. No, if you're still fighting with people, you're not talking to the angel. That's your imagination, my dear. Mm-hmm. The part that's the angel of your better nature is going to improve your nature. And that sounds a little hard and judgmental, but I think the focused awareness part is really a key word, and it's the center of everything you said, and it also extends to the general idea that people are meditating in ways that are part of their lives and they don't even realize it. Anybody who's doing any creative work, sustained creative work, anybody who is even doing cognitive work that is of a spiritual nature or an expansion of consciousness nature, that's a meditation. There's so many ways that people are meditating, and those are landmarks. So I say, it's all good as long as we're real about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to be able to ground our understandings and apply it and continue moving forward in a way that serves ourselves and then also that serves others, humanity, the planet, nature, because ultimately, like, if it's disconnecting us from others and if it's disconnecting us from nature, then I don't know, really.
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of people just living in love. They just, I meet them every now and then, and they're just happy, and they live in love, more like what you said. That is a living meditation. You know, when you are just kind to everyone, generous to people, go out of your way to help somebody. There's some lightening or quickening of your spirit that helps when you do that. Mm-hmm. I think that's, in the end, what, as Mother Teresa did, what we're all going to end up doing, you know, as we progress through whatever journeys, on whatever path. And I heard something about this the other day, is that all near-death experiencers, what did you do to love? Oops. Oh, I forgot to love. Oops. Yeah, I think that's all it's about in the end. It's just living a life of love, like you said. Love, like you said, just flow and be at peace. And
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Be okay with everything.
That's lovely. Love is lovely.
It is.
Well, I mean, I feel like we could talk all day about these things. I want to honor your time today, and we had scheduled an hour, and that came up very quickly.
It did. I hope I didn't talk too much about any one thing, and that we were able to stumble over something that will be of help to all of your listeners. And we just, encourage people to, follow their bliss and look around and know that you're not alone. that's the biggest bugaboo of all, that the ego can make people believe that they're alone. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. Just keep searching and sit down in the chair and go down and in.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing up the things we talked about. I really enjoyed this a whole lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And maybe in the future we can do it again and talk about some of the other meditations that you've been creating and the
Sure.
sounds that you've been incorporating in with that, because that's a whole nother thing. And yeah, we barely even got to scratch the surface on brainwaves and states of consciousness. So
thank you. And if people want to look into that further, you could go to Institute for the Awakened Mind.com, and under the Awakened Mind tab there are several sub menus that show brainwaves, talk about the different beta, alpha, theta, delta, and gamma, and the states of consciousness, the background of this work. There's NOIs, Max K, the Mind Mirror. People can actually buy mind mirrors, or I had a group from somewhere in Philadelphia, just a study group of women who bought their own mind mirror just to, check and experiment with it and see what produces their best brainwave patterns. And there's no such thing as the sky is the limit. There's no limit. So trip by the website and see if you might find something that is calling. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to put links as well to your website and where people can find your books, The Voice of Your Soul and Your Psychic Soul, and also your meditations and all of that over at judithpennington.com. And yeah, I just so much appreciate you taking the time to do this.
My great pleasure, Alec, and I hope I get to hear your music someday. I'll be looking for it.
All right. I love it. Until next time, have yourself a beautiful day. Take care of yourself. Much love to you.